first time, a warm welcome. I'm Lim-Lange, and I have with me today a very special guest, Professor Walid Jumblatt Abdullah. Can we put our hands together for Prof Walid?
Thank you.
Yay!
So hello everyone. I'm delighted to be here, and I was practicing my enunciation today, because a bit pressured by her. I came from a humble family. Is that what you're looking for? Oh, sorry.
Hello,
sorry, wrong channel.
Wrong
Okay.
party. Wear white. Cannot say.
So I am an associate professor now at NTU, and I did my PhD. It was between NUS and King's College, and I live in Tampines. So I was very invested in the Tampines electoral. But also, I mean, I've grown up in the East. So I grew up in Sime, and I live in Tampines now. So if I ever run for elections, not that I'm soft launching today,
You heard it here first.
even though I feel excluded from your 3% GRC last week, it's okay. I feel a bit FOMO. So if I ever run, I would tell whichever party leader that I'm running for, I would say I only want to run in East Coast or Tampines and nowhere else. And also there is something to that, because one of the things that was Jeremy's most persuasive points, I thought, was he lives in Mountbatten, right?
Yes.
And that was, I thought there's something.
He lives in Marine Parade.
Yes, correct. So he lives in that vicinity, right? So he wanted there to be a contest in Marine Parade. I think there's something compelling about that story, I'm from here and I grew up here, and genuinely, not a fake one, like, I came down here 20 years ago, I took 1 bus, 2 bus stops, right? Now, those kinds of things won't fly. But if you're really from there, I think there is something compelling about that. Although I understand why parties don't do it.
Yes.
Parties discourage candidates from standing where they live. Otherwise, your neighbors will go to you every time. There's an issue, they just go to you.
Right.
So I understand. Yeah, so I basically am an Eastie. I've been, even though I work in the West, I detest it. I detest the journey to the West every day. So yes, and I was named after a politician.
Yes.
A Lebanese politician, which is why politics is something that we've discussed since a very young age. When I was 4 or 5 years old, my uncle, my dad were all discussing politics the whole time. So it's very natural to me discussing politics. So all my family gatherings, every week, every Friday, we'll gather at my mom's place, like my siblings and I, and that's all we talk about. Like, okay, not all, but half the time we are talking about politics, right? Whether it's election season, off election season. So it's basically, I am very blessed to be doing for a living what I actually would do on my own anyway. So
right, and when you say your family gathered and talked about politics, is this local politics, Malaysian, is it global politics?
Mostly local, but Malaysian and global as well. Yeah, so that is how, I mean, Malaysia, of course, is the most proximate, and global politics, whatever is going on, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's Trump.
Right.
Yeah.
So what did you do your PhD on?
So I did on religion and state in Malaysia and southern Thailand.
Interesting. Yeah. I want to ask you now about the GE 2025, which we are still processing. What was surprising for you as a veteran who has seen it all? Yeah, veteran.
I'm only turning 40, There were a few things that I got really wrong. A couple of things I got really wrong. Some things I got right, but these two I really got wrong. And one was Professor Paul Tambaya's result.
Oh yes, they were quite shocking.
And whether they win or not, I think it's difficult to definitively predict, right? Because it's 1 or 2% can swing. So I'm not surprised he lost. I'm surprised he got 38%.
Yes.
I thought it'll be 48%. Like even if he lost, I thought he would either win or get 48%. And I felt sad, and I felt actually embarrassed for us as a country.
Okay.
Not for him.
Yes.
Because I feel like even that kind of candidate cannot win, right? What else do we expect, right? But also it teaches us something else, which I always knew, but I thought in 2025 it wouldn't be as salient, which is the constituency issue still trump everything else.
Yes.
So the bus routes, the bus shelters, the shelters, sheltered walkways, the maybe eggs also, all these still matter more than national or parliamentary issues ultimately. So that's one lesson that we can get from that. And the other one that I got pretty wrong was I thought the PSP would lose in West Coast, but I expected them to get 45, around 45. And they got 40, and I think it's the death of PSP. I think PSP is gone as a party. I don't see them contesting in the next election, and even if they do, they'll be considered a tier 3 party, or as what my friend Bertha would call a mosquito party. Yeah, I think they are gone as a party.
Right. Maybe if I come back to Dr. Paul Tambaya, which I think was I felt that the more intellectual you were, the more confident you were that he was going to win or do very well. But how about the Liang Yinghua factor? Do you think it was actually more about Liang Yinghua being a very solid candidate as well?
Yeah, it's 100% that. So some people have said that it's about the SDP brand, which is not as strong as the WP brand, which there is some truth to that. Yes. However, that cannot explain why Dr. Chi did so well.
So you felt that he did well?
He did very well. 47% is super good. Right? Okay. So I don't think. So a constant cannot explain variation, right? So SDP's party brand cannot explain why Paul did so poorly and Chi did so well. So I don't think it's the SDP brand. Then if you isolate things, that it must be that Liang Yinghua is an extremely strong MP on the ground. However you define on the ground, and Polisan isn't. As compared to Dr. Chi, because I think both of them sort of have a national profile, which are similar, Dr. Chi and Dr. Paul. And in fact, one could say that Dr. Paul has a better rep, because he is free of because of COVID, and he is free of Dr. Chi's baggage as well, which haunts him with older folks. Right?
That's true. And
not even just older folks. I think people my age also. If you remember the scene that I'm remembering now if I close my eyes, I can remember it. And for those who are a bit older, maybe you would know that Dr. Chi was chasing Goh Chok Tong around, right?
Yes.
And he said, the ones who not, I know your age already. The ones who, what's going on? They're very young. So, and that is pretty much etched in a lot of our memories.
Yes, I had a different memory actually. The one I was thinking of was the one where he collapsed from the hunger strike.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that was another famous one.
That's even earlier.
Oh my God, Walid. I'm revealing my age now, okay? But this was really the heyday of the civil disobedience phase, and this was when we had Lee Kuan Yew around, and of course Lee Kuan Yew was doing his best to say that this guy is a joker, to the point that in our generation and my parents' generation, the word was like, Chee Soon-Juan is actually working for PAP. They are paying him to make opposition look ridiculous.
That is so fascinating, because we still hear this, right? We still hear people saying, was Raisa planted by the PAP? Right? For them, they cannot imagine. They cannot imagine whenever there's something that an opposition own goal, right? They cannot imagine that really came from the opposition, must be planted from the PAP. But you're right, that did come about, Dr. Chi and the perception towards Dr. Chi, and I think it has lasted for a long time, although I don't think now it matters anymore. I think Dr. Chi has overcome that. I said a couple of elections ago, I said before 2020, if Dr. Chi doesn't win, this should be his last election. He's been leader of SDP for 30 plus years.
Yes.
That is a crazy amount of time. That's longer than Lee Kuan Yew was as Prime Minister, right?
Wow, yes.
So just to put things into perspective, but I thought he earned one more shot with his 45% showing in 2020. And I think he's earned one more shot with 47%. And he was a whisker away from the NCMP post as well. It was only until Tampines results came in, which was the last of the day.
Yes.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, this is sort of a segue, but it's a tie-up to my earlier point. Yes. Lee Kuan Yew said in his one of his books, he said that Dr. Chi and JB Jeyaretnam, he mentioned, they are anti-system, so we are out. I will be out to destroy them.
Yes, yes.
He said. And then he mentioned something. Cham Si Tong and Lau Tia Kiang are not.
Yes.
So we tolerate them. And he mentioned something in a derisive way about Lau Tia Kiang. He said that Lau Tia Kiang is just interested in attending birthday parties and funerals.
Oh my God.
Good luck to him. Now, 30 years later, right, what you would say is, Lau Tia Kiang has revolutionized politics in that particular way, retail politics in Singapore, because every MP does it now. Every MP is forced to do it, and it was because of Lau Tia Kiang. And I think it's for the worst. I don't think that should be an MP's job, or that should be how MPs are judged. But that he has redefined the game. Something that Lee Kuan Yew used to make fun of, it is something that even PAP MPs do today.
Yes. And to be fair, I think Low Thia Kiang's rally game was quite strong.
Indeed. He was, I would say he was the most formidable opposition politician until Pritam Singh came
Yes,
along.
absolutely, absolutely. And his infamous slap the driver analogy is absolutely iconic. I think I remember that being my first rally that I was at, and the amount of almost like catharsis, I would say, is catharsis, because up to then, I would say the predominant average Singaporean may have had resentment or, pent up, all of this, but didn't have really an outlet to let it out. But at that particular rally, when he used that metaphor, I could really feel the crowd erupt like, yes, it's okay.
I was there as well. Yeah. So maybe we were beside each other, I don't know. But
no, I was I was up there in the block.
20, oh, you were at the block. So 2011, and there was just a different feel.
Yes.
I think the closest one was this year.
Yes.
The rallies. I don't think that has been replicated since. But you could sort of smell change in the air.
Absolutely.
But I think 2025, a lot of people smell change in the air as well. But it didn't happen. Yeah.
And that's the thing, really. So what can we learn from this particular election about this voter, about the Singaporean? And I'm so befuddled by this, because on one hand, some people say, we've learned that the Singaporean voter is very discerning, and they don't anyhow vote, and all of that. But then at the same time, when I hear from people like Jeremy, the last fireside chat, Jeremy's like, oh, you'd be surprised. A lot of them don't even know who the candidate is. They just go in, they just check whatever. Yeah. So it's we hear all kinds of different things about the Singapore voter.
Yeah, so I think the Singaporean voter is discerning, but I think every voter is discerning. So I don't see Singapore, as in other countries as well, I don't see Singaporeans as being particularly unique or anything.
Yep.
Because voters always vote according to their own interests. They will always do that. And in our system, first past the post plus party block vote, which is the GRC, people will always vote for party and individual. So this has always been true. It is true in 2025 as well. So one of the few things I think we can learn or discern is, first of all, I need to caveat that in the absence of exit polls, a lot of the post-election analysis, it's speculation. It's just whether it's a better speculative guess than another person, right? Because exit polls are the most accurate. Exit polls, when you leave the voting box, the pollster will ask you, who do you vote for and why? And that is the most accurate, because it's on the spot.
Yep.
And that is not allowed in Singapore. So the 2 weeks later survey, or 1 month later survey, which IPS does, right? 1 month later, 2 weeks later, you already rationalize differently in your mind. Right? Not that you're lying, but you have rationalized things differently. So it's less accurate. Not useless, but less accurate. So all of this, what I'm saying, it will be speculation as well.
Yep.
So the first thing is, I think PAP is still seen very much as a safe choice. If people thought that the PAP is no longer seen as a safe choice, which was the case probably in 2020, I think they have definitively shown that in times of crisis, people go to the PAP. Or at least they still go to the PAP. Second thing is, Lawrence Wong is extremely popular, but we already knew that from all the surveys that we had.
Right.
But Pritam is also extremely popular, so the two of them rate pretty highly. And the third is, I think the WP has to accept that Lawrence Wong outsmarted them on nomination day. And for a couple of reasons. One is, the Trump tariffs. So last year was a terrible year for incumbents throughout the world. Incumbents all suffered.
Yes.
Except for one, maybe out of hundreds of elections, local, national, incumbents always suffered because of the global inflation. But this year, incumbents have recovered. So you see this, Australia, Canada, incumbents did pretty well. So the signs were actually there already, that the incumbents were going to... flight to safety, and it's because of the Trump tariffs. But I thought also, how on earth are they going to make the Trump tariffs something that voters care about at the ballot box? Because cost of living and housing would still... Cost of living has worsened since 2020. Housing has worsened since 2020. So if it was just those bread and butter issues, you would expect the vote share to decrease. But what what Lawrence Wong and the PAP did was they put a face to economic precarity. They put a face to the tariffs, and that face was Gim Kim Yong. And Lawrence Wong made Gim Kim Yong the centerpiece of the election, like front and center. Like everything was about tariffs. We need Gim Kim Yong. We cannot lose Gim Kim Yong. And that was a high risk, high reward move.
Yes.
And turned out it paid off for him. The other thing, what I would say is that and I think the external conditions explain more than individual candidates. So you cannot tell me, right, that Josephine Teo, Vivian Balakrishnan, Xia Yao Chuan, Eric Chua, all of them are more popular than Tharman ever was. I mean, nobody really believes that. Yes. But all of them got higher votes than Tharman at his peak. Yeah, against similar opponents.
No. I was Holland Bukit Timah, so suddenly it was against Red Dot instead of SDP. So I no choice lah, you know.
No, but Tharman also.
not that I'm saying no. Actually, I still.
No, but Tharman also was against Red Dot. Yeah. So you see, Tharman was also against the Mosquito Party. He never got close to 80%. Right. So the Mosquito Party or the Tier 3 Party cannot explain why all of those things. There must be something else. Because Tharman was always up against Mosquito parties, right? Sorry, Tier 3 parties. I think it's a bit dismissive because, you know, they are braver than you and I, the people who contest. So I wouldn't ever, you know, make fun of. I mean, sometimes I do, but I don't think we should be derogatory towards. Yes, in moderation.
Wait, I want to double click on this.
Please go.
I want to double click on this Gim Kim Yong thing. Okay, because I'm like, as you know, avid social media scroller, right? And okay, so there are some conspiracy theories. I want to hear your take on this. When Gim Kim Yong was being filmed and it went viral on TikTok, there were a few clips of Gim Kim Yong looking damn pitiful on TikTok. Oh, you nodding your heads. You all know, right? Ayo, some very poor thing, standing there. Then he's like trying to. Then everyone ignoring him. Then there's another one where he's like at a hawker center, everyone ignoring him. Very pitiful. So then some people, or some of my followers, wrote to me and said, "Oh, I felt very angry. Actually, I was going to vote opposition, but when I saw." People ignoring Gim Kim Yong, I felt so outraged that this, you know, so I voted for PAP. And then there were also some followers who said that it's a publicity stunt because they said it is very unlikely that, and one person even said that, look, they actually saw Gim Kim Yong, but the way he was, walking was outside a school during pickup time where all the parents were like rushing in to get their kids and everything. So was it some kind of like tactical ploy to make him look pitiful?
Yeah, I think that wouldn't be my interpretation. I've seen that theory going around, and just knowing that the PAP is very much always about face, I don't think they would go there and take that risk. I don't think so, because he could go other way, like, hey, the Deputy Prime Minister, so people ignore, you know. So he could have gone the other way, and I think the Workers' Party probably thought up until polling day that they were going to win Punggol, right, and probably Tampines as well. Just based, I mean, I was there the day before cooling off day, so Thursday, I was at Tampines because I was going to interview Faisal Manap. I interviewed Bayam King on Wednesday, I interviewed Faisal on Thursday, but I interviewed him outdoors, so at Tampines, near Tampines Interchange. So I just stood there after my interview, I just stood there for maybe half an hour, and I saw the reception towards them. It was overwhelming, especially to Faisal. I think people just saw Faisal making the move, like Lau Tia Kiang making it. It was overwhelming, like people went like non-stop. Like, so I don't think that all of those were orchestrated, like Gim Kim Yong. I think really, I mean, and also Gim Kim Yong is not like so prominent. He's not so prominent. Like, it's not Tharman, or it's not even Shanmugam or Lee Hsien Loong, right? It was just this election that Gim Kim Yong became Gim Kim Yong, right? In the way that he did. And I think you have to give PM Lawrence Wong props for that. I think he played that very well.
Yes. And with a little help from Straits Times and all the agencies as well. So, but this is the thing which is confusing, because like you have a lot of people saying that PAP really does social media very badly. And also PAP needs to, you know, understand how to do the presentation, the executive presence and all of that better. And then they do come up with some very smart moves, like the task force men, but are kind of patchy lah. So I think the statement, right, that the PAP doesn't do social media well, I think that statement needs to be unpacked, because the PAP is not a monolith. I think some people in PAP do
their social media really well. I think Ong Ye Kung is one of them. I think PM's one is not bad as well. It's pretty good. Some people do it okay, moderately okay, won't move the needle either way. Some people do it terribly.
Yes.
I think the PAP Sengkang team,
yes.
I mean, they deserve to lose. I mean this seriously, just on the basis of their social media. Honestly, I was very worried that they would win. Because for this reason, for this simple reason, that I think that shouldn't be the way that votes are won or lost. And if they had won, that means that means the tactics work. And I don't want that. I don't want that, like, oh, you do one Labubu video, then you think you're going to get. And I thought it was very bad. And I was really hoping for the sake of democracy that the WP retains Sengkang. So I think some of them do social media better than others. And some of them, you know, the thing about doing podcasts is you can't, in a scripted or in a CNA interview, right, a 10 minutes interview, it's easy to waffle your way through, right? You'll still be found out, but it's easier. But in a podcast, right, 1 hour unscripted. Yes. I think not many can. I mean, if you don't have anything up there, you don't have anything up there. You can't waffle your way through. I think an unscripted 1 hour interview. Yes. And I've seen some of them fumble at that, and I also think that they were pretty selective. Although WP is the same as well. In some ways, WP is even stricter with their media appearances than the PAP. Yeah, I think WP is more consistent. But like, let me ask you a side question. Please. Ong Ye Kung's media team, social media team, which is, you know, widely regarded as one of the best, right? Do you think he pays for it? Yeah, I think so. Why wouldn't he? No, out of his own pocket, or do you think got budget for it? Oh, that one I don't know. This one is in difficult territory already. So because right, why is it in difficult territory, right? Because if I am doing this as a Minister of Health, then that comes from the ministry's budget, right? But what I'm doing as a Minister of Health helps me inadvertently as a candidate for. Yes. So, but this is just the nature of incumbency, you know, incumbency advantage. Yes. WP were incumbents, they would have the same advantage as well. So that's why I don't know about that. So if you look at PM's one, and I think there is a line, you know, younger people would be more, I think Geraldine would be more au fait with this, right? There is a line between being cringy and going viral, you know. And unfortunately, a lot of times our politicians do the cringy part. And I think it's okay if you have substance and then you do the cringy part. It's okay. I think people can accept. So they need to do less of the. But I don't think it was about social media or about anything. I think it was about the other things, right? Because you can see the WP. Just now I was saying the WP is so strict with its appearances. Like, everything is centralized. So both the PAP and WP, they were the ones who chose the candidates to come on my show. I didn't get to choose. Right. Yeah, so they were the ones who chose. And WP, I understand also why Pritam is so careful, because they've been burned by the media. I understand that. But my pitch to Pritam, if he's watching, right? My pitch to him is that the times have changed, right? And the podcast scene is different, and not everyone is out to get you. So I think they also should, hopefully in 2030, move with the times and be a bit more open to this. Yeah, I think you're right, because Pritam actually is a very naturally charismatic and warm, and you know, he would no doubt shine in a very informal 100%. You know, but we see him very much like rally beast mode unlocked. You know, you know what he does? Labubu, eggs, whatever. You know the whole thing comes out, right? But we don't get to kind of see the warmer, kind of more colloquial side of him as much as we do Lawrence Wong. Although right, I don't think it is such a bad thing that we don't see that part of Pritam. I don't need to know his MBTI, you know. I don't need to. Although hang on, we did see him singing at Teochew. That was quite charming. So I think Pritam doesn't need the pots, right? So is the others, the newer ones. But I also understand for the WP new candidates, a lot of them are thrusted into this, you know. So I did you know, the Daily Catch-Up did a daily pod where they had guest hosts. So I guest hosted one of it with Alia and Alexis and Michael and Dr. Ong. So it was a 2-hour thing. And when I saw them, right, they were just like almost in zombie mode, you know. It was at night, and you know, the 9 days of campaigning, right, is so physically and apparently people lose 5 to 7 kilograms on the...
Wow.
Yeah, so I just found out as well that one of the candidates, I shall not mention who, one of them told me he or she lost 3 kilograms, another one 5 kilograms, another one 7 kilograms.
My God.
Because nine days of lots of walking, not eating properly, not sleeping properly. So, so I understand the 9 days, right? If you fumble a little bit, I understand. But if you are reading off a script and you fumble, that one I cannot.
Yes.
I cannot accept it.
Yes. Wait, I want to double click now on the Workers' Party because I felt like there were a lot of very promising candidates, and some of them had a lot of hype, like Harpreet and like Alexis, and then we didn't somehow they didn't sort of live up perhaps to the hype that was created. So for instance, Harpreet, I felt like there was a lot made out about him, like this is going to be the next Chen Shou Mao, lawyer, Harvard lawyer, everything, and then not much sort of publicity or people talking about him. Alexis was very interesting to me, like as a casual observer. She came in like with a lot of support on the ground. And of course, a lot of people commenting on stuff that was irrelevant, like her looks and all of that. And then she became kind of like the poster child for sexist behavior, and all of that, which I think was distracting from her message. But then, by my estimation, I had a lot of female followers writing to me by the end of the campaigning saying they actually didn't like Alexis as much as they had. And they gave the rationale that she was so-called bitchy during the rally speech, that, again, this is a little bit of internalized sexism, I feel. At the end of it, when she gave her rally speech and she was, addressing some of the issues, they felt like her tone of voice and the way in which she said it, was kind of like not becoming of a politician. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about, and I do think it's just that. I think the other thing that really reminded me, I actually was talking to Geraldine about this. I think this was in January, we were talking like over tea and saying it's 2025, gender doesn't really matter, and I was just reminded how much it still matters.
Oh gosh,
it's much harder to be a woman candidate. Like you can be in either way, right? So if you are good looking and you say good things, people will not remember the good things, right? If you are good looking and you don't say good things, you're a bimbo, right? And if you are, your tone is slightly off, right? Nobody says that about Pritam, right?
Yes.
Pritam was full on aggressive every single rally.
Yes.
People will be cheering. Nobody says, "Oh, yeah, bitchy," or whatever it is. So, I mean, it was just a reminder to me that my male privilege is still very much in existence in 2025. It was a reminder. Now, going back to the new candidates and the quality. So, Harpreet is very interesting because he's 59 years old. He's at a different stage to most of the other candidates, right? He's achieved everything that he has to achieve in his career already. This is like personal fulfillment, whatever it is, right? So I think the PAP was legitimately scared of him. Okay. I think so. I think if you look at Marine Parade bridal heights, right? Yes. How do you explain that shape?
Right.
How do you explain that shape? It's just the most weirdly shaped GRC in history. The fact that the Deputy Prime Minister went to Punggol, right? It was just because of Harpreet and no other reason. So the PAP was legitimately, I think, worried. Maybe not scared, but worried about Harpreet. I get what you mean. I think Harpreet has to work. He's an extremely brilliant person. Yes. He's a star catch for the WP. I think he has to work on his rally speeches. Yes. His rally speeches. I think if he had delivered them in Parliament, they would have been more effective. Yes. But in a rally, you need a different vibe.
He didn't have, I felt, this fire that I
correct, the stage presence,
he didn't have
fire.
The fire.
Yeah. So I think we also forget that politics is a different beast, even if you are so well established and all. He's still a green politician, so he still has a lot to learn. Now, Alexis and Alia, I would cut them a bit more, slack, because they're around my age, first time, and they were thrusted into it like they were only unveiled as candidates, but quite late. So a lot of things were new. I think there are definitely things that they need to work on. I think they are also aware of it. I think the star is going to be Eileen.
I was just going to say.
Oh, really?
I was just going to say Eileen to me when you said that, you know, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't as a woman. I felt like, whoa, she walked that knife's edge.
Yeah,
she really, like, she really knew how to.
Yeah, and Eileen is early 30s.
Yeah.
I think she's going to be the next Sylvia Lim or that level.
Yes.
I don't want to set unnecessary expectations on her, but I really think so. I am super impressed by Eileen.
She had a very understated sort of intellect.
100%, 100%.
But she's like so fluent and so articulate, but also she kind of vibe like confidence. Like, I know who I am, I don't need to steal the show, I don't need all of that.
Yeah, and what I would say about them, and Sylvia Lim is somebody who never ever plays identity politics. You know, she's never mentioned her gender, whatever it is. But this time around, she said she made it a point to praise the female candidates of WP because they were quite stellar. And I do think, I said this to Alexis and Alia, I am pretty sure they have inspired a lot of young girls to come forward later on.
Absolutely.
I have no doubts about that.
I must say that female candidates of G2025 were outstanding, including there was is it Samantha from the one with in the debate who represented.
Yes, not Samantha. The PSP.
PSP, yes.
Stephanie.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. She was also
indeed.
good.
Yeah.
Yes, and Suraya from SDP.
Correct.
Many very outstanding new faces who are female.
Indeed.
Yes. So like, maybe we segue from that, having all these outstanding female talent, then going to see the latest cabinet. I mean, not many new female faces and like a diversity. I don't know. Let's hear your take as the expert. What do you feel that about the new cabinet?
Yeah, I think the new cabinet. Okay, so to be frank, I think the 2020 slate from the PAP probably was a pretty weak slate. The new slate from 2020. Is that a lost batch? I think in some ways it is, and I'm quite glad that PM Wong actually. There were a few first-term MPs. If you're a one-term MP, right?
Yeah.
That means, right, you really didn't do well. You screwed up somewhere for you only to serve one term, right?
Are you talking about like people like Ng Chee Meng?
No. I'm talking about like Fahmi Aliman, Carrie Tan. You know, after one term and then you are dropped by the party, right? You are not fielded again. So I think those people definitely. They didn't win the trust of the PM to put them. So the 2020 batch is different. I look at the cabinet, right? Maybe in terms of the major movements, there isn't, except for the 2 new acting ministers or 3 new acting ministers.
Yes.
But I look at the senior parliamentary secretaries and the ministers of state, and I look at it as Lawrence Wong is planning really long term. So those people from that batch, I think they're pretty all right. But of course, time will tell. But it looks promising at least. You know, Goh Yan Yan, Syed Harun, Dinesh. You know, so those type of people, I think they are pretty promising.
Yeah.
So we'll see whether they live up to the hype. But I do think that we are in good state with that. Now, for the current situation, I think Lawrence Wong is also kicking the can down the road by not choosing a deputy from the 4G.
Yes.
Which also maybe tells us something.
Yes.
But it also tells us where the power centers are. Shanmugam is as powerful as ever, perhaps more so. Chan Chun Sing and Ong Ye Kung are clearly the other one. So if I were anybody in the PAP, if Chan Chun Sing or Ong Ye Kung calls me, I'm not going to ignore, right?
Yes.
I'm going to answer that call. So it's clear where the power centers are. And for the other ministries, I mean, dropping Ng Chee Meng, Ng Chee Meng calling to say he doesn't want the post.
Nice phrase.
I think that was a PM flexing. He's flexing, and as he should. He doesn't need the 2 ministers that were the biggest liabilities, or the potential ministers, right? Ng Chee Meng, 51%, Masagos, 52%.
Yes.
The day after I said, I wrote on Facebook, I said that if I were PM, I would drop the 2 of them.
Yeah.
And because you have such a good mandate already, you don't need to bring these people along and undermine the fact that you only got 47 or 48 as a sitting minister or potential minister, right? That's pretty damning. Right? That's what that was the undoing of Heng Swee Keat.
Yes.
He didn't become prime minister because East Coast residents, 47% didn't vote for him. So I think the PM made a wise choice by dropping Masagos from the Minister of Muslim Affairs.
Yes.
He's still the MSF minister, but I don't think for long. I think it'll be a matter of
Can I go
time.
back to that? Because a few of my Muslim followers wrote to me about Masagos, and I must say that I've met him before, and he seems like a really nice person, but he seemed to have lost a lot of support from the Muslim community. And what they were sharing with me was along the lines of, he didn't take a stand. They didn't feel that he represented them. Like, for example, about issues like tudung in the parliament, and they felt like in a way he was like a stooge, like, okay, everyone sit down, stop talking about it, sort of thing. Was that your sense of why he
100%. So that was and is my sense. And so there were many incidents that already affected Masagos' credibility. I think 2017 there was Faisal Manap mentioned the tudung in parliament, and Masagos stood up and not just responded to it, but scolded Faisal. Scolded Faisal for raising it. I remember in 2021, right, somebody sent me an article. They say, hey, this is from 2017 or what? Then I clicked on it. Oh no, this just happened yesterday in parliament, because the same incident was repeated in 2021. So Faisal Manap being scolded by Masagos for that. And then also in 2020, there was the home-based business, which I'm sure Munira remembers, because Firdaus was intimately involved in that, and Masagos was scolding people who were championing that home-based businesses could be allowed to operate during COVID.
Oh, yes.
So that was another blunder.
Yes.
But the final nail in the coffin was the Kelvin Cheng incident. That was the final nail in the coffin. His credibility was pretty much shot already, but I think the Kelvin Cheng incident really, so Gaza and Palestine it has delivered some death blows to politicians worldwide.
Yes.
Right? And the Minister of Muslim Affairs in Singapore, it's a poison chalice. It's one of the most difficult, honestly, it's one of the most difficult positions. There's no way for you to please the Muslim community fully while also maintaining national interest. There just isn't, right? However, I think most Singaporean Muslims are reasonable. They don't expect the moon and the stars, They just want like some sweets and candy. Right? Just throw a bone to us, right? Which is something that we felt that, I don't want to say we, but I felt that Masagos couldn't even do. And in fact, I was one of those who say, and you can check this, there is nobody else who said that Tampines was most in play before nomination day. Nobody else said it. And I said, I was goading Pritam, like, Pritam, come to Tampines and you'll win, right? You come to Tampines and you'll win, right? Because I smelt it. And it wasn't just me. The fact that there are 3 opposition parties there, all of them smelled what I was smelling, right?
So it was too smelling. It was too good smelling already.
Exactly. So yes, I think that was... So PM, the fact that he dropped Masagos from that and put an acting minister, that shows that he's listening. Yeah,
that's quite ballsy.
It's very ballsy, very ballsy. And I'm sure Masagos isn't too pleased, but I mean, Lawrence Wong just has to do what he has to do. So kudos to him for that. And, Faisal, in his first couple of weeks, he criticized Critical Spectator. He visited a Palestine event. In just 2 weeks, right? For me, he would have done more than what Masagos did in the past 2 years. Honestly, I genuinely mean that. Genuinely mean that. I think that was a good move by PM.
I think this is an excellent opportunity to talk about your book, Why Palestine? And, this fantastic book it taught me a lot, actually. Many things that I discovered. Firstly, I didn't know that before Muslims prayed in the direction of Mecca, they actually prayed in the direction of
Al-Aqsa Mosque.
In
Jerusalem.
In Jerusalem. And, maybe a segue. This book brought up memories of me being 18-year-old in JC days and having my history. I studied humanities history lecturer. His name, I think, Mr. David Chua. I remember he wrote in one of the first history lessons on the board. He said, "Palestine is not where is Palestine. It is when is Palestine." Oh. Yeah. And then he said, when is Palestine? And this is a question that we need to really go back over centuries to discover. And depending on where you start, like then we have a very different take on this issue of Palestine. And does it start from the Balffor Declaration? And in fact, it's so thorny now, like we don't even know whether we are allowed to call it a genocide.
Yeah.
Is it a probable genocide? Is it? But we know we can't call it a conflict because that minimizes things and so forth. But I was hoping that you would shed a little light for us Singaporeans who may not be as familiar with the issue. It's like what is really at play here, and why you felt so strongly to write this book.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So a few reasons, and I think one is a group of my family members, including myself, were all named after Arab revivalist leaders in the 1970s and 80s. Actually, Walid Jumblatt, the original Walid Jumblatt, is not a Muslim. So I was named after a person who's not a Muslim. He's a Druze. But my brother's name is Yasir Arafat. Yeah, I have a cousin who's Ayatollah Khomeini.
Seriously?
Yes. Muammar Gaddafi.
Hey, you guys book a restaurant reservation. Very exciting, no?
Yeah. So Ayatollah Khomeini, Muammar Gaddafi, two other people who I shall not name. But yes, so this is something that we've always discussed in our family, and something that actually people who know anything about Muslims or they would know that the Palestinian issue is something that really is close to many people's hearts, even before, way before this, way before October 7th.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, the first direction of prayer for Muslims was actually Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is also because Islam sees itself as the final stage of the religion of the prophets, of the Jewish prophets. So Islam ties its lineage directly to Judaism. It makes that claim.
Yes.
That's part of its identity. So Palestine is an important part of the Muslim faith because of that. It's the third holiest mosque in Islam. We are encouraged to go to it, and so on and so forth. So obviously that personal religious affinity is there. Yeah. So I'm not one of those who say, oh, this is not about religion. I never say that, because part of it is about religion. What I say is this is not wholly or solely about religion. In fact, the root of it is not religious. The root of it was a group of atheists, actually, Jewish atheists who thought that the Jews, rightly, that the Jews were oppressed everywhere that they were in Europe, and therefore they wanted a land of their own. I don't think that claim is a crazy claim. I think that was a justified claim, because Jews were indeed the subject of a lot of repression and oppression and discrimination in Europe, Eastern or Western Europe, throughout. So they thought that, in fact, when the initial Zionists, the people who wanted a Jewish homeland, so for ethnic Jews, a lot of them were atheists, by the way, they were not religious. When they were actually happy to have Uganda and Argentina as well, as a potential homeland. And the majority of Jews at that time rejected them, rejected the call for two reasons. Two reasons. One was religious, because they said only the Messiah who will come at the end of times can establish a Jewish state. Another one was a secular reason, which is a lot of us are already well integrated in many of our societies, especially the Arab countries. The Morocco, Yemen, Tunisia, there were sizable Jewish populations, and they didn't want to move. In fact, and all of this, it may sound like crazy conspiracy theory, but if you look at the history, all of these are matter of public record, that the early Zionists, in order to entice the Jews living in the Arab populations to move to Israel, right, they conducted false flag terrorist attacks. Can you believe that? Wow. They conducted false flag terrorist attacks in order to entice people to move away from those lands. But anyway, so those things happened, and for me, the issue is really, and today, because I posted something on my IG story, and today 3 people actually DM me. Very pro-Israel people who were quite angry at me. From time to time, I get these kinds of. Yes, we all do. Yes. So I get from time to time, I get these kinds of DMs, and so I was saying that you tell me what the Palestinians are supposed to do when they give up violence, as the Palestinian Authority has given up violence. They've chosen the path of peace. They go to the United Nations. The US vetoes it. They give up arms. But West Bank is still occupied. There's no Hamas in West Bank, right? There's no. So Palestine, so Gaza is here, West Bank is here, and the whole in between is separated by Israel, right? So West Bank and Gaza, so they are two separate entities, right? And actually West Bank is Holy Land, not Gaza. West Bank is Holy Land for Muslims. Jerusalem is Holy Land for Muslims, Christians and Jews. So if they give up arms, it's still occupied. And then when Hamas did whatever it did, and again, as long as civilians are involved, it cannot be justified. But they did whatever they did, and then the result is more violence, more genocide.
Yes.
So you tell me, and then when the flotilla goes, a peaceful flotilla, people are saying, oh, this is not the right activism. You tell me what is the option for Palestinians. You tell me. And 3 people, true to form, DM me, just leave. They said that, just leave Palestine, right? And my question to them was immediately, so when Singapore was invaded by Japan, do you think that Singaporeans should have left? And 2 of them proudly said, one of them said, yeah, my grandfather fled China, and if Singapore was invaded today, I would leave. And I said, I want you to say that publicly. I want you to say that publicly, not in my DMs, right? Say that publicly and see. And I hope that Singaporeans all don't think like you, right? The first sign of trouble, you're going to leave the country. Right? I hope Singaporeans are not like you, right?
Yes.
And the other one even said, oh, Lee Kuan Yew collaborated with the Japanese, so what's wrong? You just have to do whatever you have to do to survive, right? Like drawing on all sorts of nonsense. So, and my point is, why is that expectation, that burden only put on the Palestinians when we wouldn't put that on any other population, right? When you understand that if you are invaded, then the right thing to do is to tell the people who are invading to get out, not the ones who are being invaded. Hey, why don't you leave, right? It doesn't make sense, right? It defies belief, rational sense. So there's a lot of things that really make me emotional, angry, upset, mad, whatever it is about this. But one of it is also the utter hypocrisy of a lot of Western countries, Western governments. Not all, because you have countries like Spain and so on who have recognized Palestine, who have Ireland, who have taken a strong stance, but especially America. And you see that there are all sorts of hypocrisies, right? One is, just a few years ago, oh, Ukraine is invaded, this is a threat to democracy, right? Palestine, oh, both sides, history, blah, blah, blah. There's no both sides in Ukraine.
Quarrel.
Family quarrel.
That was the worst.
Family quarrel, sibling rivalry, right? So there is no such thing. And then the other thing is, oh, we need to protect free speech. Look at these liberals, right? They are trying to counter free speech, right? We are free speech absolutists. And then there's a pro-Palestine demonstration, arrest them, right? Arrest them. And Donald Trump, one of his principal claims to election in the second time round was his protection of free speech. Because he said the Democrats had gone too far in restricting speech.
Oh, yes.
And he was right. I think he was right. The Democrats and the left had gone too far. But the moment he was in power, then he clamped down on every. So it seems like every single thing, right, there is a Palestinian exception, except for Palestine. All those things will apply to everything except for Palestine. And that's why I thought, okay, and this book is really not for my IG followers, right? It's not. It's for your 100,000 IG followers. So it's for people who, I think the majority of Singaporeans, or the median Singaporean, right, would care about this, or they are sympathetic to it, but they are ambivalent for various reasons. Singaporeans are ambivalent about most external things.
Yes.
We already have a lot of issues on our plate, cost of living, and we are all in the rat race. So we don't think about external issues that much. So I'm really trying to get to this. I'm not trying to get the critical spectator and that crowd, the racist crowd. I'm not saying, and I think that hopefully, and I think it is the minority. I think the median Singaporean is just someone who is ambivalent but can be persuaded to care. And that's who I want to read.
I think you're absolutely right. I do think there are many of this kind of like mass, core in Singapore who understand, but they don't feel confident enough in their understanding to actually speak up about it. And especially, as Chinese people, as a culture, we have this very harmony-seeking kind of conflict avoidant thing. So, and especially when it comes to other races, that may be involved, it's kind of like, oh, this is like not our place, not our place to say something. I wonder whether also you could kind of, maybe talk a little bit about the Balffor Declaration, because I feel like maybe not everyone would know about that, and the history of how the British actually were the instigators that actually gave the country of a third party to the second party. And you had a wonderful quote about this in your book.
Yeah, indeed. So it was the British, because they were sort of on the verge of taking, there's a British mandate of Palestine, there was colonization, and they were ruling that part of the world, especially the Ottoman Empire was on the verge of collapse already.
Yeah. And this is in
1917. So the Ottoman Empire was towards its last legs already, right? And the British foreign minister, right? So he actually promised it to the Jewish leader. So he promised Palestine to the Jewish leader, and it was George Galloway who actually said this. It was one person who was a British foreign minister, foreign secretary, on behalf of one people, on behalf of the British, who promised to another person, the Jewish leader in UK, on behalf of another people, the Jewish people worldwide, the land which belonged to a third person. So the first person promising to the second person the land which belonged to a third person. The third person wasn't even there. Negotiations. That's what Professor Rashid Khalidi, he's the foremost historian on Palestine in the world. He says that this is the first declaration of war on the Palestinians. And the Palestinians never recovered from this. Never recovered from this. And then, of course, that declaration signed this into existence, and eventually in 1948 the State of Israel was formed. Overnight it was called Nakba, or the Great Catastrophe, which actually has a similar connotation to the Holocaust, because a lot of the Arabs actually at that time were actually quite sympathetic to the Jews because of what happened in the Holocaust. So it had a similar meaning, a similar derivative word at least to the Holocaust in Arabic. And the Nakba, the Great Catastrophe, overnight Palestinians became refugees in their homeland. Right? Overnight, just by writ, right? So it happened just like that, and a lot of them. I've met many. I've had the privilege of meeting many Palestinians. My honeymoon, by the way, I got married in 2013, was in Palestine. I went to Jerusalem. So the moment my wife came down, the sniper pointed at her. Just her, out of the whole, and if you ever meet my wife, you can ask these incidents. And we know that was just scare tactics, right? My brother used to study, my younger brother used to study in Jordan. So he used to go to Jerusalem a lot. So one time he was going for morning prayers, and then the soldiers just closed the door. So Al-Aqsa compound is a huge compound. So you have to go through the old city, and then it's open air after that. But they closed the door just before the huge compound. So then my brother just started his morning prayers there. He started his morning prayers there, and then just a group of Palestinians just followed him from behind. So it was impromptu. And the soldiers got so mad, and they just went to him and pointed the gun at his head, while he was praying.
Wow. And
then they tear gassed the whole. So my brother has been tear gassed by the Israeli police, right? Another time my brother was leaving the border, and then he wanted to go to the toilet, and then he just went to the soldier and asked, "Can I use the toilet?" He said, "You can use, but I'll shoot you."
Right.
Can you imagine any other army doing this, right? The most moral. I'm not giving you second-hand, third-hand. I'm telling you people who went through it, and I've seen it with my own eyes as well, So yeah, this whole thing, it's one after another. So 1948 was the Nakba, and I've had the privilege of meeting a lot of Palestinians in the diaspora and otherwise, whether it's in Jerusalem. I've been communicating with people from Gaza as well because of the scholarship initiative, and a lot of them will have similar stories. My grandfather, my grandmother was here, 1948. They left their house, they came back, their house was already occupied, right? Or they left, and then they established a tent somewhere because they thought it was just temporary, the conflict will be over in a while, but they're still living in that tent. They were born in that tent, right? So all of these stories, right, it's real stories, real people, and anybody who knows just a little bit about history, you'll admit that all of these are true. These are not made up. These are real people. It's just that maybe in Singapore, and it's not just Palestine and Israel, right? So two things. One is Singaporeans are generally ambivalent about this because we are ambivalent about external conflicts in general. So even when the government cared so much about Russia, Ukraine, Singaporeans didn't care that much about it. But secondly, also because Singapore has had close ties with Israel. And it's true. Israel supported Singapore when no country wanted to support Singapore.
When Lee Kuan Yew wrote in his memoirs that we broke away from Malaysia, he said one of the first phone calls was to Israel, and they basically sent the unit of soldiers down.
Correct. So he approached Egypt before that, he approached India before that, and they refused to help because, Singapore is a smaller country compared to Malaysia, Indonesia. They didn't want to offend Malaysia and Indonesia. So Israel did help Singapore. So all of that is true as well. We cannot deny that as well. But surely a friendship doesn't mean that I will support you unconditionally, right?
Yes.
There's no relationship. Even in a marriage, there's no such thing as unconditional love, right? Love is, there isn't, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe my marriage is different, but...
making my husband very troubled.
Camera shaking now.
Like, I think I can only think of a mother's love as close to being unconditional. Even that, I don't think is super unconditional. A father's love, definitely conditional. But yeah, even in a marriage, so in a friendship, so it cannot be unconditional and cannot be unwavering no matter what. So you can do both things, right? You can acknowledge all of the benefits that Singapore get from the relationship with Israel. At the same time, we have to draw a line in the sand. And to be fair to the government, I think they have done all right in doing this. I think they've done all right. There have been missteps, of course, calling it a family quarrel, which I think that was out of line, which I mentioned this in this book. And even at a closed-door dialogue, Chatham House rules, so I cannot mention this minister, may or may not have been relieved from one of his positions. But anyway, it may or may not be. And this minister said that, it's husband and wife conflict. We shouldn't, when husband and wife fights, we shouldn't interfere.
But this came out actually.
Yes.
The whole domestic.
And then I'm thinking, what? That is not even MSF's position.
Yes.
MSF say your husband and wife fight, the neighbor must call the police, right? That is even how can you say that? First of all, how can you trivialize what is happening? For me, it's an open and shut case, textbook case of genocide, right? Okay, you don't want to call it that because the ICJ hasn't ruled definitively. You can say it's a plausible genocide. At the very least, if the term genocide, like if you're allergic to it, right? Okay, call it mass murder if that makes you happier. Call it whatever you want. However, I'm not interested in the term itself. I'm more interested in the contents of the term.
I also wanted to be mindful of time and realize that many of you may have questions for Prof Walid about this, either the book or something else.
The elections,
or anything. And we also have time for...
About marriage.
Not about marriage. We do also have, afterwards, we also do have copies of his book, and we can do signing and photograph taking. But maybe I'll throw it out to the floor, because all of you have been patiently listening to us dialogue. Yes, Lim-Lange.
Singaporeans, is it due to lack of understanding, or are we just shallow? I don't know, but I do know what I do know also is that cost of living and economy is always the first or second issue in any election, even in the most developed of democracies. So maybe we are shallow, but we are not that much more shallow than even other people. Now, having said that, I do think our political literacy is very low.
Very low, yeah.
So as Jeremy said, right? So I do think, I always say this, right? You go across the causeway, right? You go to any coffee shop, you take any random uncle, right? Malay, Chinese or Indian, you talk politics with them, right? 4 hours they can. You go to Singapore, you go to the heart of the universities. You want to talk politics? I don't care about politics. You shouldn't laugh. You should be ashamed, right? You say that, but that is a reality. But that's also perhaps the result of the PAP's success in two regards. One is because we are quite comfortable. A lot of people don't need to be super involved in politics, and the other is the PAP has depoliticized a lot of institutions which would have been politicized otherwise. Trade unions, student organizations, right? So I used to be in NUS Muslim Society, right? So So once a year you would meet with the regional Muslim societies, and then the Thailand one, our talk is about why Southern Thai should be autonomous from. Oh, then I wanted to dig a hole and hide myself, because the events we organized were night cycling and whatever. Like the levels, right? It's very different. The students there are far more politicized than us. And these are countries that generally Singaporeans look down on.
Yeah.
But, we look down on these countries, but their populace and populations are far more politicized. So I don't think we are super shallow. Maybe we are still, some of us, or some of that is there, but I think political literacy is pretty low as well. Even some of the things, right, which, some of the candidates were at fault also. I saw this candidate saying that, we have all these MRTs being built, right? So please vote for us because you want this to happen. But I say, hey, this has nothing to do with the MP.
Absolutely.
The URA master plan is 15 years or something. It has nothing to do with you. Why are you taking credit for it, right?
And also controversy, like, where Sylvia Lim was talking about, when I came to Punggol, there was nothing. And then everyone like, hello, you never heard of URAs or
exactly.
But that was the criticism, right?
Correct. Yeah. So now the second part, the comms versus reality, you are right. The comms part, I'll leave it to you. I would say two things. One is, on foreign policy especially, there has been really, I think the government also thought this was an elite thing. So that's why they never communicated the principles of foreign policy really well to Singaporeans, which I think after Ukraine, they sort of thought that maybe we need to do it because they were shocked that there was a small group of older Singaporeans who supported Russia over Ukraine. And then Palestine, of course, just showed, okay, we really need to tell people about this. So I think they have failed on the comms on, even though, as you said, the principles of Singapore's foreign policy, I think, are sound. Then the other one is interesting about communications during the elections. If you notice, the quote-unquote lightning rods didn't speak during the elections. They didn't speak. They were not given a lot of airtime. Do you notice that?
Lightning rods meaning?
Josephine Teo. You didn't hear a peep from her. Even Shanmugam was very subdued. Very subdued. What? Why? Yes. Why? Right? You're right. Why? Yeah, exactly right. Because nothing in Singapore happens by accident. I have no doubts that was a strategy by Lawrence Wong. No doubts that lightning rods don't speak too much, right? Especially those who have had issues in recent months, right? Okay, just stay away from the limelight. Let me front this, let Gim Kim Yong front this. All those scandal-free politicians, right? Who are the ones who are scandal-free, maybe too, but basically issue-free politicians are the ones. And I think that was a good comm strategy.
Very smart. I would actually say that, and again, I might cut this out of the podcast, but when I first joined NUS, I was a director there, and I was brought on a tour by a very senior member of NUS, and this person was bringing me around, explaining the campus to me, and I went to FASS, and this person was explaining to me, you know why FASS is like this on a hill? And then, it's all these hills, because I was complaining, it's got all these staircases going up, going down, left, right, it's like a rabbit's warren, whatever. So this person, senior management, said to me, this is during Lee Kuan Yew's time. Lee Kuan Yew was very afraid of the students because, the students were always the ones with the communists, up to trouble and all of this. So they purposely designed an NUS, FASS, to be easily surrounded. So so it's on a hill. It's easily and the access to it is very easily contained. So if there was any riots or anything, it was very easy to surround them. And don't forget, Chee Soon Juan and all that came from FASS.
I came from FASS.
Exactly. So there was a particular strategy. So then I was also informed. So there's all this kind of behind the scenes thing that where Lee Kuan Yew was very against purportedly this culture of dissent, which starts from university, from the students coming up and debating and thinking about this and all of sort of that. I was then brought the next part of the tour to U-Town. I'm sure you're familiar, Stephen Riyadi and all that, Went to U-Town, then I was informed that, this is a thing that could never have existed during the Lee Kuan Yew's time. Because again, during that time, apparently, the story was that NUS was strictly forbidden to have any focal point like Speaker's Corner or anything like that, where again the students might gather and debate and start talking about real issues. And it was kind of like, only after that culture of fear and all of that eroded or dissipated rather, that then we could have a central focal point where it could be the heart of university life. So coming to this point, which is that it's a very ironic thing that Lee Kuan Yew was a very brilliant debater, and he was extremely articulate and extremely educated, believed very much in education, but selectively. Selective education, and even famously said, I wish I hadn't educated the women so early on. Yes, and being such a brilliant debater and orator actually was so successful that he bred a subsequent generation of people that were terrible at debating because there was so much clamping down on the dissent. And there was so much of this that, during Goh Chok Tong's time, even OB markers is very psychologically unsafe. So during Goh Chok Tong's time, like if anybody like Catherine Lim wanted to bring up something about then she was slapped, and said like this is out of bounds. But the thing is that when the government doesn't tell you where the jurisdiction is, what is inbound and out of bounds, then people by nature play really safe. So there's a very famous psychological study where there were kids in a school, and the school was bordered but its grounds were bordered by a very busy road. Okay, so the parents and the teachers would always tell the kids, stay closer to the school because don't go and run away because there's a busy road, there's no fence and everything. So the area in which the kids occupied was directly next to the school in that vicinity. One day, they decided to erect a fence. So from that day onwards, the kids ran all the way to the edge of the fence, and the entire ground was occupied. Now, in the same way, if we don't know where the boundaries are, we will never go to the edge. We will be kiasu and we will stay very, very far away from the edge. And that is why in Singapore, I believe we have this mentality that, Gaza, I don't know lah. Maybe is this out of bounds? Is this in bounds? I don't know. I better not say. So I'll just play close to the edge. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. The culture of self-censorship is very rampant, and I still see this even among students. So you're 100%, and that was so spot on, and which is why I believe it is the job of people with influence, right? Myself or yourself, to be on the edges of the boundaries, right? But you never know where the boundaries are until you cross them, right? So
I mean,
I hope someone else crosses them. I hope you cross them, not you. Somebody else, you.
Please, don't curse me.
You don't try to think of it too much.
Yeah,
because the moment you think about it too much, right, you'll be so inhibited, you won't do anything.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that, part of that is almost like my moral responsibility to say something, because whatever it is, I'm a Crystal Lim-Lange, thanks to my German husband. If anything goes wrong, I can always go to Germany and say, okay, forget it, whatever. But
I don't have a German wife.
I don't. Exactly.
Come visit us.
So, I mean, the thing is that even for me, and I have so many options. I was Aussie PR, I can go to Germany, I can live anywhere in the world. But even for me, it kind of sometimes keeps me up at night. Am I going to be whatever? I can't even imagine people who are not privileged, who don't have options. It's 100%. Just like, and therefore we go back to the chicken egg thing, like, which came first? Is it the fear, that is it education, or is it, this lack of culture of debate?
100%.
Okay, maybe one last question, because I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this. What are some practical steps that Singaporeans can do, or any people anywhere in the world can take to stand with Palestine and solidarity?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. And I think there are a lot of simple things that we can do. Some very simple, some you can do now, some maybe a bit more heavy lifting. But one of the things is, just now you said, you mentioned that, as a Chinese, you don't know, you don't feel, actually, your voice would be so much more important than mine, or more useful than mine, right? Because no matter what, no matter how I intellectualize it, whatever it is, right? And then I will always be open to the criticism. You're a Muslim, of course, you'll say, and that's not wrong, right? It is true. That's part of my identity, which I own also. I cannot disown that identity, right? So it would really help, if, which I'm thankful, you have been supportive of my book, so I'm eternally grateful to you for that. So
we are very honored to have you.
No, I'm happy to be here. So one of the things, you can speak to your friends about it, and I always say, what I want is, I ask my my friends, my activist friends, my Muslim friends who care about this, right? Talk to somebody outside our circle, right? Your friends who are not so involved in this, right? And don't speak, right, from a moralistic high ground, right? Hey, why you don't know about this? 2 years already, you still don't know about this? And then you expect them, oh yeah, let me come over. Of course they'll be turned off, like, who are you, right? You don't need. So I think we must embrace that. Embrace that people are at different stages and different understanding, and I think speak to as many people as possible. That's one, just in our own circles. That will do wonders. Secondly, of course, we can donate to a lot of these causes. So many of them, so many accredited ones. Even before October 2023, the mosque did regular donations, like once in a while for Palestine. You know, we have all sorts. I mean, the scholarship that we are doing, that hopefully we'll get 5 Palestinians. They have been accepted into our local universities.
Amazing. Have you hit the target yet?
Our target was 2. We have 7 people who have been accepted.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
So yeah, it's great. Hopefully all the things will fall in place, and then we get them to come here. All of them were from Gaza, by the way. So, but 4 of them have left Gaza already, but only last year. So none of them were from the West Bank. And for me, this is a miracle. Like, and they mostly found out through Instagram, you know. So. So it's amazing. So that's the other thing that we can do. But also one of the things that we can do, right, I think, and this one a bit, okay, so the other, of course, if there's no demand, there's no supply. So if you care about it, you meet your MP, talk to them about it. And partly I blame Singaporeans. If you only talk to your MP about your estate issues, right, don't be surprised that the MPs only focus on estate issues.
Yes.
Right? Because the supply will only be there if the demand is there. So when the MPs come, and this I remember my late father-in-law, right? The MP come, and you know how Singaporeans generally are, especially Malays, you know, very, very polite, you know. So the MP come, how are you? Close the door. Oh, you're the most useless MP ever. Why didn't you say that just now, right? You know, Singaporeans are non-confrontational, you know, very deferential to authority. And I'm not saying we should be confrontational, but at least tell our MPs
Bring
that we can. No, right to our MPs. These are very simple things we can do, right? Like
absolutely.
On our phones we can do it, right? Just to let them know. It's not even just to get an outcome immediately. That's not how activism works. It's not that today you do, tomorrow you don't get, you feel despair, right? That's not how it works, right? It's for the long run. And finally, the last one is visit Palestine. Visit it, you know, on a holiday, go there and just see it for yourself, and it will be quite safe. I mean, West Bank, of course, it'll be very safe. You're not a Muslim, it'll be even safer for you, right? For us, there's the Muslim tax, you know, at the immigration, minimum 5 hours, 7 hours, 12 hours.
Wow.
For me, it was 5 hours, and that was one of the shorter timings, right? So you can do that as well. So I think there are many ways. If we really, really wanted to do it, I think there would be many ways. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Prof Walid, for
Thank
coming
you.
today. Just hands together for Prof Walid.
Thumbs up. Okay. What